Bienvenidos. That means good night, welcome, how are you? Is this when you say hello, good to be here? All right, we got the president with us. We got to get a little excitement in this room. Bienvenidos a todos. We're thrilled that you could join us at the National Press Club. This evening's event is more than just a critical conversation on the state of Washington. It is a celebration of our bilateral relationship with Mexico, a relationship, frankly, that is at risk. As President and CEO of the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, I have the honor of representing 4.4 million Hispanic-owned firms in this country that together contribute over $700 billion to the American economy every year. And whether it's in the halls of Congress, state capitals, the White House, or corporate headquarters, our organization puts the Hispanic business community at the forefront of our nation's economic agenda. How appropriate that we are gathered at the National Press Club, because it is no secret that our First Amendment right to freedom of the press is under attack. Today, with the help of Pulitzer-Prize winning journalist Mary Jordan, we will candidly commit ourselves to truth. No fake news, no alternative facts. Thank you sincerely also to all the other members of the media who have joined us here today. We have over 34 media outlets from all over the world. And finally, on behalf of the United States Hispanic Chamber, we extend our utmost gratitude to the Honorable Vicente Fox, President of Mexico, from 2000 to 2006. Today, his legacy speaks of his great leadership. He is known for boosting economic development and decreasing poverty, reducing corruption and crime, strengthening the rights of the indigenous population, and increasing trade relations with the rest of the world, and in particular, with the United States. You see, President Fox is a global leader that recognizes the value of bonds between nations. We are stronger individually when we bridge cultures, communities, and countries. And when it comes to Mexico, we know that we share so much more than a border. We share a long history unified by economic and social interests. Our countries share a bond that cannot and will not be inhibited by a wall. But why would our business association care so much? Well, consider the following. 94% of the global market exists outside of the United States. So quite frankly, if our members are to continue to grow, they must have access to foreign markets. As America's third largest trading partner, Mexico plays a crucial role in boosting our nation's economy. And I never pass up the chance to remind the leaders at the highest levels of business and government that Mexico is a larger trading partner to our country than Brazil, larger than France, than Germany, than Great Britain, than India, than Japan, and the list goes on. In fact, right now, bilateral trade between Mexico and the U.S. stands at $530 billion on an annual basis. Every day, over $1.5 billion of trade crosses our unwalled borders, and this has created over 6 million American jobs. Additionally, while most Americans don't know this, Mexico ranks among the top 3 export trade partners for 39 of our American states, and that includes states like Kansas, Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Minnesota, South Dakota, and even Rhode Island. At the USHCC, we understand that the relationship with Mexico is an economic imperative. So we look to leaders in government to strengthen not only the diplomatic ties with these neighbors of ours to the south, but equally important, the economic ties. This means preserving NAFTA. This means a reasonable immigration system. This means security for our dreamers. But I'll let the president talk to those issues, as his words carry much more weight and more wisdom than mine. In recent news, he has been known for his, shall I say, colorful criticism of President Trump. And we're thrilled to have him here today, because that criticism, as candid as it might be, frankly, is extremely valuable. In his new book, Let's Move On, Beyond Fear and False Prophets, President Fox offers a unique perspective on America's political climate. In an era of isolationism and anti-Mexican sentiment, he discusses the divisions we see today, how we got here, and where such divisiveness can lead. But more than that, he offers advice. This book is not so much criticism as it is a lifeline. President Fox illustrates a remarkable commitment to American democracy. In the book, President Fox asks, what would you do if your neighbor's house was on fire? Would you sit and watch because, after all, it's not your house? Or would you try to help? I feel morally obligated to help, not just because helping others is the right thing to do, he says, but because if you don't do something, soon your house will catch fire too. Now, joining President Fox on stage is my dear friend, Mary Jordan from the Washington Post. Mary has been a foreign correspondent for countries across the globe. She lived and reported in Mexico for 5 years, y habla español perfectamente bien esta mujer. And she won a Pulitzer-Prize for reporting on Mexico's criminal justice system. I had the pleasure of meeting Mary when she interviewed me at the Republican National Convention, and I could not imagine a more impressive or qualified individual to be joining President Fox on stage today. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please stand and welcome to the stage Washington Post national correspondent, Mary Jordan. And finally, please welcome the former President of Mexico, the Honorable Vicente Fox.
Thank you, Javier. Thank you for all of you for coming. And I must say, my husband, Kevin Sullivan, is here, and my colleague in Mexico, he also was on that team, the husband and wife team that won the Pulitzer. We just had news. We're back in the green room, and the phone beeped, and the headline is kind of big, so I have to ask you about it. It says, President Trump's immigration proposal to Congress is going to include a path to citizenship for an estimated 1.8 million young undocumented immigrants. And this is after the White House has been briefing people today. And that's more than twice the number that was included in DACA that he killed before. It says Trump's plan, which is going to formally go to the Senate as early as Monday, also includes $25 billion for a border wall.
From Mexico?
He's sending it to the Senate, so he's asking them to put up the money, and a lot of other things are. There's a lot more details coming out about this, but at least on the headline, what do you make of this?
Well, let me tell you, after 100 years, that many people here in the States and much more in Mexico, we've been striving to reach this point. And concretely, back in 2003, this is 13 years ago, a bill was presented in Congress advocating for 11 million undocumented people in this nation. It was a bipartisan presentation, Senator Kennedy, Senator McCain, and President Bush administration. And I had the honor to be here in Washington 4 days in advance of that very sad day, September the 11th. And I sat down with all the commissions related to migration and related to trade and NAFTA, and everything was ready to go. Unfortunately, that awful date changed everything. I got a phone call from President Bush saying, Vicente, priorities have changed. You and I had as our first priority an all-comprehensive reform in the case of migration, but now I have to work on security. And that will be my priority for the next month and next years. And I remember how he was applauded in every global meeting that we participated. We all would stand up and applaud him because of that decision. We had to accept that our case became with a less priority. But anyway, today we might be witnessing history again. But permit me express some doubts. If this happened today, what the next tweet is going to be about. Just not more than 3 weeks ago, he was saying that it will never pass. Then he said he loved the dreamers. Then he said that he might consider. And today he says that we're attaining it. Fortunate 1.8 million, because I know they want to stay here. That's where their friends are. This is where their families are. And this is their country. We wish we could have them in Mexico, all that 1.8 million, because that would be fantastic. Mexico would change incredibly with 1.8 million talents, graduates from universities. They can change the world, believe me. So finally, Senor Trump came back to reason. I'm glad for that, if it happens.
If it happens, so if he says, if you give me $25 billion and we're going to build a wall, and it doesn't seem to be a 2,000-mile wall anymore, it seems to be, there's already 700 miles there, he's going to use some natural boundaries and some other. You've talked a lot about the wall. Is it a fair trade? You get 1.8 million people who have a path to citizenship, and they can build the wall with their money?
It is a fair trade because I would not change the future and the dreams of one single human being for a wall or for 25 billion. To me, it's much more important the future, the happiness, the dreams of each one of those dreamers. Now, in the case of Congress approving 25 billion US dollars, let it be. If this is what United States wants, to take out of the pocket of citizens, taxpayers, 25 billion to pay for a useless wall, I don't care. We Mexicans don't care. And there are many other better alternatives than that to invest 25 billion, for instance, creating jobs here, creating jobs in Mexico, creating jobs in Central America. With 25 billion, you can create at least 2-3 million new jobs. There will be 2-3 million people with opportunities. But anyway, if that's what is going to be done, it's not important for Mexico.
Why do you say it's useless?
I say it's useless because history has proven true on this. The Chinese wall spent years, decades, hundreds of thousands of people working, having a job to build the Chinese wall against their enemies, the Mongols and the Manchus. And they just finished building the wall, and the Mongols and Manchus jumped it and conquered China. So it was absolutely useless. The case of the wall in Berlin, exactly the same. A lot of money invested in that wall, and at the very end, it couldn't refrain people looking for their freedom and their liberty. And so President Reagan comes in and says, Mr. Gorbachev, tear off that wall. And walls will harm severely this nation, because this is a global nation. This is the leader of the world. And President Trump has to understand that when you elected him, it was not to be just president of the United States, that he would become the leader of the world. And that's a huge responsibility upon the shoulders of anybody. And he's not up to that. I mean, he's been offending Germany, Spain, Japan, everybody. And, but the case is that these decisions of building a wall and closing within a wall 350 million US Americans, 350 leaders, 350 brains and talents, 350 human beings behind four walls. It's incredible, absolutely incredible. And when he talks isolating from the rest of the world, from those who, as well mentioned by Javier, there is a world out there that is 90% more in economic terms and consumption terms than United States. Why would he enclose and force global corporations, U.S. global corporations, U.S. Fortune 500s in four walls and let them out of the markets they have conquered? It's incredible when this nation, right after World War II, decided to go for markets, decided to go global. And so they had a very bad time trying to convince all of us, other economies, to open our economies, to accept the Coca-Colas, the automobiles, the computers, and everything that was produced here. And we were convinced and accepted the challenge. And then we, Latin American economies or other economies in the world, became very competitive. And now that we're competitive and we have a surplus, then the leader said, no, that cannot happen. I'm the leader. Let's build a wall. Let's change NAFTA. Let's get out of NAFTA.
Are you saying that really it's a $25 billion statement, a psychological statement? Because, you know, there is hundreds of miles of walls there. So in a way, like, what's the big deal if he wants to build a few hundred more? Are you saying that when they start building this and all the rhetoric behind it, because you were talking about globalization, is it a bigger statement than the actual physical wall?
I don't know. Some say it would go up to 45 billion. It depends on the technology, the height of the wall. And with that height, with one of these poles on the Olympic Games, they will jump it, don't worry. Or like Chapo Guzman, they will make a tunnel and go under. So who knows how it's worth. But look, I mean, a wall is nonsense. You can use your mind. You can use intelligence. Drones, for instance. With 35 billion, you can buy about, I don't know, 5 million drones. You can have one drone in every meter of that border, surveying there and watching if somebody's crossing.
So
People are not crossing the wall or the border.
But if you talk to people, you know, and there's a lot of people, 63 million voted for Trump. And there are a lot of people that just say, you know what, I like people who follow the rules. I don't like people who just jump over fences. So I
agree with them and with everybody. We need order and securities in the border. But we have better ways and means of attaining that. For instance, at the very end, we're talking about an economic issue. When NAFTA started, the income that you would make on the U.S. side compared to the income on the Mexican side was tenfold. So you would make $1 in the Mexican side, and by learning how to swim and cross the Rio Grande, or learning how to jump a wall, you would make $10. I ask you, each and every one of you, would you not go for the $10 instead of $1 that you were making? So this is the price and the cost of success for this nation. And number two, when NAFTA advanced in one generation, now NAFTA is 25 years old, the gap has narrowed from 10 to 5. So the incentive is not so powerful That's why we see people coming back, migrants coming back, Hispanics from here to Mexico. But at the same time, we achieved one of the main purposes of NAFTA, to bring Mexico to a better level of living and a better economy. And that is happening also. This is why my forecast is in one more generation, in 25 years, if we keep NAFTA, we're going to be 1-to-1. You will make $1 in the US side, you will make $1 on the Mexican side. And that's Canada today. And then you forget about the problem of the border and the problem of this exchange of migrants. It doesn't happen anymore.
Let's talk about NAFTA, because there's critical negotiations going on now, and it is 25 years later. And the President of the United States says, it's been great for Mexico. Just what you'd say. If he were here, he'd say that. But what do we get? This is what he would say.
Stupid, man. Let me tell you.
Tell us how you really feel.
Let me tell you. 5 years ago, just 5 years ago, GM, Chrysler, Ford Motor Company went broke. And you, taxpayers in the United States, had to rescue by billions of dollars those 3 companies. Ford didn't accept, the other 2 did. But you invested a lot of money in recuperating and bringing back to the market those companies. What happened? That they became NAFTA corporations, and this is the heart of NAFTA. Putting together our resources, putting together our capacities to be competitive and compete with the East. So these 3 companies became NAFTA corporations, and they have one foot in Canada, and they produce intelligence there and design. They have one foot in Mexico, and we manufacture. They have one foot in the United States, and you take the cream of the milk. This is where it stays. The profits come back here, and the jobs have not even been lost. You have lost manufacturing jobs. The United States has lost 25% of its manufacturing jobs, considering 10 years before. But you gain 50% more technological and information technology jobs. So those guys of the manufacturing, they better learn that there is not going to be a job for them in the future in 5 years or 10 years. Robots will take it away from them. Technology will take it away from them, and things will change. This is why nations that are thinking with their head, not like here, this guy, like Norway, like Sweden, they are establishing a universal income for every family and every person, no matter if you work or don't work. You get the minimum you did to live. And you can then dedicate yourself to go to vacations or to read or to learn about technology or do something else. They are preventing and knowing that we're running at fast speed to a world where there will be no jobs anymore. And it's great. Nothing will happen. We're creating robots to work for us so that we can dedicate ourselves to a spirituality. We can dedicate ourselves to reading, to learning, to taking care of our family, to enjoying love. So I think it's great what is going to happen.
I hate to move from enjoying love to NAFTA, but can we just go back for 1 second? Because you successfully predicted, it turns out, that Mexico wasn't going to pay for the wall. In fact, you said no effing way. That started trending on Twitter.
Kevin, he's the creator of the phrase. Your husband.
Well,
in San Cristobal, Mexico.
But if so, since you predicted, because it doesn't look like Mexico's paying for the wall, what is your prediction about NAFTA? These negotiations, I was just in Iowa, and American farmers are quite worried about it because they send most of their corn to Mexico. It is a huge issue now. What do you think is going to happen with NAFTA?
Two outcomes. One is stay in NAFTA and improve it. And I guess every single American wants to do that except one dictator. He wants to impose his position. And I'm taking it easy here in Washington because it's his home. So I have
He
to
left
be careful.
town. He's in Davos
have to be
because he
careful.
heard you were coming. I
Okay.
guess.
No, but let's. It's nothing personal, believe me. It's just ideas. Where were we?
So I'm just what do you think is going to happen with NAFTA?
NAFTA,
Because
okay.
some people are worried that you're
That
going
one,
to cut
okay.
the U.S.
Yeah,
out and
okay.
just it'll be Canada, Mexico.
Let's see the scenario of the other outcome. He quits out of NAFTA. What happens? First of all, there are rules in the OATC, the Organization of Trade and Commerce. It's a global organization created by United States and other founders. You would have to submit yourself to that, those regulations. If we move out from NAFTA, then this organism will regulate what we will do. And then, if that's the case, nothing happens, except that he has said that he might also get out of the OET. And if he gets out of there, then we are on the selva, on the jungle. And everybody will eat more plate if you're smart. Now, Mexico is already dealing with China. Brazil has a trade agreement with China. China buys much more than United States. They trade much more than United States. It's huge what they trade. So we're already conversing with him. We're already buying grain, corn, sorghum, soy in Brazil and Argentina at much lower prices than what we buy here. If we stop buying from United States grain, about 3 million farmers will not have a market anymore. How are they going to survive?
Would it be so bad for Mexico if NAFTA becomes just Canada and Mexico? I mean, he's already trashed TPP, and people have just cut the U.S. out. And
you know, the big problem is this. You have oriented, you have conducted all your investment, all your activities to the U.S. market. So if we have to move to go to the Chinese market or go to South American markets, we have to adapt factories, we have to adapt models, designs, we have to adapt marketing strategies. So it will take years to do that. And that's why Lázaro Cárdenas, which I don't like, he said this route is too long. So he nationalized the oil industry. I don't want to see that as a scenario. We will all lose if we start fighting with each other. Every decision has a reaction. Tax cut. You cut taxes here. The rest of the world, we will have to adapt. We will cut taxes, and we will all win. And it will be even again for all of us. So the advantage that Trump is claiming for U.S. corporations, they will have it also in Mexico. They will have it also in Europe.
do you agree with his tax cut, the president's tax cut for corporations?
It has not been ever proven, that thesis of Republicans, that when you move the money from government into the pockets of corporations and rich and a small amount for regular people, it doesn't work. It's not true that the economy responds growing immediately and responds on creating more wealth. Usually what happens is that corporations, like some are doing now, are using that money to liquidate those that they are firing. This is news yesterday or day before yesterday. Or they're using that money maybe for other causes. So it's difficult to think that they will reinvest all that money generating more wealth. So that thesis is not proven. I believe in that thesis. I brought taxes down from 36%. It was the income tax rate in Mexico, down to 32 and then to 28, gradually. Maybe that's what should have been done here, to bring it down gradually. But you have to replace that money. And where is the Trump plan going to replace that money? With more debt. So your sons and the sons of your sons and the sons of your son are being indebted. That's Trump's plan. The other plan is to substitute that income with another income, which is what we did and the whole world is doing. When you use this tax, corporate tax, heavy, what you're killing is investment, what you're killing is corporations, and you're killing in entrepreneurship.
There's been
So the world has moved to sales tax, where you tax consumption. He who consumes more, he pays more. He who consumes less, he pays more. Much more fair kind of taxation to tax consumption.
The tax discussion has brought up an issue that's consumed a lot of people about growing inequality in America. And sometimes outside views are more perceptive. From you were at Coca-Cola, you have been in America so much. Do you feel that this plague of, which has really been a developing world problem, is now coming to America in the divide between rich and poor?
I really think that's what happens. If you follow the chain, when there's consumption, you get investment to provide that consumption. When you have to invest, you get companies, corporations, and investors, and the circle becomes virtuous. When you reduce the tax to the big guys and don't do it to the small guys, to the great majority of people, you don't provoke consumption. So to me, it's better what Mexico did. You exempt up to a level of income, the lowest levels of income, you exempt, and from there on, you still lower the tax rates, and that really enhances consumption. You enhance consumption, you enhance investment, you enhance corporations, and you go back to the circle. But that's my thinking. It's not proven. So I guess it's good. The stock exchange is moving. And by the way, the stock exchange in the United States is the best distributor of income, because 60 million families in the United States have stock from different corporations in different companies. So it distributes income on the long run.
So we just mentioned that Donald Trump is in Davos today, and his America First policy is much a discussion there. So, and we're on the one-year anniversary of his presidency. So since you're so colorful with words, how would you describe the first year of Donald Trump and his effect on the world?
Poor. You know, this obsession of him to comply and commit with what he promised campaigning, I think that's absolutely wrong. When you campaign, you should listen. You should make your own plan for government. And then you should get a team and tell you about how to do it. When you're campaigning, the only thing you want is votes. I was also a populist. I was also, in a way, like him. But I learned very quickly that I had to listen, to people and see really what they wanted. And then you start changing your plans. So today, keeping that obsession that he has to comply with the promises he made, I think it's absolutely wrong. And he's finding out. He's finding out. DACA, when he was campaigning, he said, no more migrants. And all the promises he made there. So he should have flexibility. This idea of him being the greatest dealer, he makes deals and he always wins. That's wrong. That's wrong. You make deals to let your opponent have what he wants, and you get what you want. But both sides win. When you destroy the other, you press him way down to the floor, and then you beat him, and then you said you won. All the marbles for you. It's not a good way of dealing. And more so, his compassion. He only loves himself again, maybe Melania, I don't know, and maybe his grandson, because we all fall in love with our grandsons. But further and away from that, those first proposals to bring in Eric and Ivanka and the family, the whole family to the White House, each one with a position, a very relevant position. I mean, that's pure nepotism in Latin America. We don't accept it there. You're running to trouble doing that. Fortunately, they are out now. They're in problems with this Russia thing. And fortunately, they are out. Bannon, oh! Steve Bannon, the body of Trump. All of them racist, discriminators. So in the genius of them, we see what we saw for 100 years in Latin America. That's why we're lagging way, way, way behind in Latin America. Because we believe this kind of characters. We believe those dictators, those populists, those Kirchners, those Perons, those Chavez, those Hugos. Incredible. We believe on them because they told you, don't worry.
What's
if you're
the
afraid,
danger?
I build a wall.
What is the danger there?
They tell you, if you're afraid, don't worry, I build a wall for you. You don't have a job in the carbon industry, don't worry, we will get back the carbon industry. Or you lost your jobs on the manufacturing automobile companies, don't worry, I'll get you jobs. Sit down, have your beer, watch TV, and wait for me to perform. I'm going to perform for you.
Let me just go back to one thing, because since you have been so clear about your feelings of Donald Trump, it was a little surprising a minute ago that you said, in a way, I was like him. You were a populist.
Yeah.
In what way were you like him? He might be interested to know
met,
what you have in common.
Well, let me tell you, my life, most of my life has been private sector. Learn a lot of things, work hard. My grandfather from Cincinnati, Ohio, taught me how to work hard and how to dedicate my life in politics. And I came to politics because I believe in compassion, because I believe that you have to do something when things are not running well. So I decided to jump into politics. And the learning there was incredible. I mean, it's you have to pass so many experiences, making mistakes like he is doing, until you finally learn what it's all about in here. But I say the number one characteristic of a leader is compassion. I mean, compassion. This thing that they teach us in universities, that leaders have followers and that leader shows the way, that's not true. It's teams that develop the capacity of leaders. It's what they get from people that joins with them to the capacity to show the way to go. And so it's totally different. And this makes being leader an exclusive issue. So usually people think, I'm going to be a leader. I'm going to try to be like Mahatma Gandhi or like Martin Luther King or like President Trump.
But when you were running, what did you mean there? When you were running, you came up against a political machine, and you got a lot of people to vote for you. I mean, I just was curious. What did you mean by that?
That's my point, is that you then, when you campaign, you overpromise. You overoffer.
And how do you get out of the problem of saying, well, they reneged, you know, you're not following through on what you promised? How do you get around that?
Well, that was my case. No. I mean, first you have to get there, and that Trump did. But when you're there, you forget about this. This was playing a game of competitiveness to gain votes. Now you're president.
Doesn't it seem a little duplicitous?
It is simple, but it is bad, but it is true. Everybody that gets into politics, they tell you they want to serve, they want to help you. It's good. They tell you that. But what they want is power. What they want is money, including myself. So you go to politics for that. You go to politics for that. But in my deep heart, I have a Jesuit education. I have the commitment to serve others. And to serve others, you have to have a position. And then you serve others.
Let's go back to this news of the day, Joe. You know, Javier has talked to the administration, and you know, this is the administration. I mean, to get anything done, you've got to talk to them, and you've had a line into them. And there has been feedback that there is some evolution. And then we had news today that, you know what, it's not going to be 800,000 dreamers. It could be 1.8 million. So is it possible that 3 years from now, at the end of this term, you could be happy with this administration? He could evolve?
I know you evolved, and he is evolving. That's why I say we are domesticating him. He's learning. He's learning. No, he's learning. He's learning. You learn. You have to be open to learning. And that happens to all of us. So that's one point. The other one is 3 years from now. Maybe it would be working, but to make sure that that happens, I don't see anything better that in November he has a Congress of Opposition majority. I think that will assure this nation that the balance of powers will work for the benefit of the nation. Now, again, I know you want short answers because you got me nervous. But my thinking is, it's not unique to United States what is happening here. It's everywhere in the world. Everybody is disappointed with democracy. Democracies are not delivering the expected outcome that we elect governments for. And that's in the soul and the heart of every American. You think that things are not going that well. It's not that the American dream is dead, like he said, but he was appealing to that. He knows that everybody's saying, Jesus, this is not working as well. So that's a general feeling worldwide. My analysis and my point of view and my evaluation is that we are going to see the born of new ways of operating democracies, of electing governments, because the governments we're electing, they don't have governability. We're electing with 1% difference, 0.5% difference. They don't have the support of people and public opinion to carry on with the needs of a nation. And this happens everywhere in Mexico and Brazil, everywhere in Europe and Spain. And so we're going to see something new coming in the very next years. And one thing that can illustrate that is parliamentarian systems. I think they work much better than presidential systems like we have all throughout Latin America. Because there, let's say that the selection of the prime minister is done by a group of people that got there to be parliamentarians because they have capacities, they represent people, so they elect the prime minister. And they elect him just as long as he does well, because they can take him off 6 months after. If he's not working well, the group gets together and say, Prime Minister, we're sorry, but you're out. And they elect another one.
I think
So
we're
you don't
stuck
have to
with
wait
our,
8 years.
our system, though. I think they can't even change the electoral college, so I don't think we're going to.
See, that's bad.
But let me ask you about compassion, which is a really important point. And I think these stories that we've been seeing in the news about fathers and mothers who are here for 3 or 4 decades, who don't even speak Spanish, that ICE picked them up, and they don't even have family back in Mexico. The State of the Union is next week, and the wife of a man who was deported is going to be the guest because the Democrat who's inviting her, Debbie Dingell from Michigan, is so outraged. So there's a lot of people that are outraged about these deportations, but I haven't really heard how it's seen back in Mexico. So are these big stories, and how, like, what happens when these people who go back?
Their families welcome them because they've been transferring money to them. Every month, every Hispanic here sends $300, $200, $500 to their family there, to an amount of today $24 billion US. So that's one very close relationship. But how we see it, we're harmed, we feel offended. This is my case. I would not be doing this if the day I heard Trump saying what he said, I said, I cannot support this. I have to do something. Because I was grown among those that today are here as migrants in the ranch. They were poor people. I had the opportunity to go to school because my father was able to afford it, but all of them did not. And so their only option was, let's go to the other side, al otro lado, as they say. And they are here. I visit them in kitchens. I visit them harvesting vegetables in California, harvesting apples in Washington State. I'm very close to them. I really work for them from Mexico. And so it hurt me that he spoke of them the way he spoke. When they are my heroes, I love them. They are my inspiration. Migrants are a very special caste. All of you here come from a migrant family or a migrant background, all of you. And they are very special deep persons. As I said, my family comes 400 years ago from Ireland. When there was pest, disease, war in Ireland, they moved out. They went to the best place at that time, which was Strasbourg, on the border of France and Germany. There was action there, there were jobs, there was peace. So they settled there for 200 years. And then war came into Europe, and war came right there, and things got difficult. So they moved to United States through Ilian line. They came here. And where did they go? To the crossroads, where the action was, Ohio. Do you know that Ohio has given 7 presidents to this nation? Ohio. So they came in and settled in Ohio. And that's where they even participated on the war, on the Civil War here. But my grandfather decided to move down because, you know what his job was? Sacrificing the hogs for the butcher in town. And that was his job. And the butcher would sell the meat right there on the street on a table at that time.
Was there something specific that Donald Trump said about immigrants that so riled you up? You said, when I heard him say that, I had to. Yeah. What was it?
Criminals, rapists, and else. He doesn't like brown colors, that I'm sure. He doesn't like black colors. He doesn't like yellow colors.
You then went on to call him many things. Yeah. I think buffoon was one of the ones I could say on family television, but there was one about like a rotten Halloween pumpkin from last year, and other things. So we're not used to, and then there was, of course, a lot of the expletives. We're not used to presidents doing this. I guess I just want to ask, why are you so over the top about the President of the United States? Because usually people aren't.
I wanted to call attention to my message, and he's a good sparring for that. And basically it's that, because, I mean, how many Hispanics we have here? 35 million. Who else besides Javier speaks the truth? And who else besides Javier goes to CNN, goes to news, goes to everywhere? I think this movement of women that we saw last Sunday, and we saw a year ago, that's the way to go. That's the way.
So you have everybody's attention. I mean, you did it for, what, in a nutshell, is your message?
My message is, this is a great country, is the leader of the world. It cannot fail, and it cannot fail by having a president like him. This nation has to keep building what you have built, doing what you have done, trying to take care of the world, and be compassionate. I mean, how many Americans are without gaining nothing in Africa, attending the poor, attending the sick, attending the economies there? How many of them are in everywhere else in the world? This is a compassive nation. That's what the founder fathers did. So that's what I expect to happen. And number 2, North America, NAFTA. How are we going to meet the challenge of the East? Just imagine 5 years from now, 10 years, China's economy is going to be larger than the United States. Trading today, China is 25% more trading than United States. And so the power, financial world, markets are going to shift to the east? And what are going to be the prevailing values if we go by their beliefs and their dogmas and their things? What's going to happen with the Western civilization, all that we have built in Italy, in France, in Germany, in the United States, in Mexico, in Brazil? What's going to happen with all of that? Empires go by. Last one, the British Empire, off. Now is United States. And I don't want United States to behave like an empire. And I don't want the President of the United States to behave using the stick, being the ugly American that we hated so much in past years. We need America to keep its soul, to keep its heart, to keep its diversity, to keep building what you have already built. And how can we say that one guy comes here and tells 350 million that you were wrong for a long time, that the American dream doesn't exist anymore, that America is a loser? He's calling all of you losers. Why do we accept that? It's not acceptable. I know he will give us corn, like you give to the chicken. It's given to the business community. Okay, you get a tax cut. Now you do what I say. That's what he's telling them. You Chrysler, I don't want you investing in Mexico. You Ford, don't build that plant in San Luis Potosí. Jesus Christ. How can we submit to an authoritarian? I mean, is he brilliant? Is he a genius, like he says?
What do you think?
Is he? Why do you ask me?
Well, how much damage has he done? I mean, people go back and forth.
Much.
How much? How much?
Much. He's getting hate, raising hate in all the world. And when you raise hate, you pay it.
Is it recoverable? I mean,
and I mean, this nation abandoning its leadership position. Look at China immediately. From everything that
can
they don't
America
want,
recover from this? Can the United States?
But if you can get rid of him, yes. I've been working with Venezuelans. I went to Venezuela to fight against Hugo Chavez and the other guy Maduro, and we haven't been able to get rid of him. Dictators, once they get power, they smell power and they feel powerful. Jesus. And he's beginning to feel like that, a genius, a powerful man. Red button here. You pinche norcoreano. You pinche norcoreano. I have the red button here. So quiet down, calm down. And the other guy shoots and shoots. It's incredible, the President of the United States playing war games with that kid, with that stupid kid. Well, anyway.
It's nice to see how passionate you are. I mean, if you're up here, you can really feel it coming through you. Just two quick things, and then I'm going to have Javier turn it over to some other people who have some questions here. There's been a lot of discussion about the strategies of the Democrats here. You know, have they caved too much? Have they not played this right? You know, this guy isn't, some people think, the best deal maker. And what is your thought? Because this is so close to your heart.
My thought is that Hillary will not come back to be the leader of the Democrats.
But the Democrats on the Hill with DACA,
Michelle Obama should have tried it, but she rather stay away from politics. And believe me, I do too. It's tough to be there. If in my reincarnation in this world I have a choice, I would have stayed on the private sector. Too much hypocrisy here. Too many things that...
Really? If you did it over, you wouldn't have been the president that smashed the PRI?
No, I'm honored, and I really have great joy and really enjoyed it. But if I would have a choice again, I like straightforward people, straightforward thinking. I like the truth and nothing but the truth.
So that's
and
why you said promise something in a campaign and do something
We have a
different.
saying in Mexico, when you're in politics, you go pegadito a la pared, near the wall, with your buttocks back there. because otherwise they F you. They F you.
So you thought
So that's politics.
Michelle Obama should have run for president? You thought?
No, leader. She should be leader right now, and I think she has the obligation to. Obama should be more present, but we have to see the future. What you have there, John Kerry, Joe Biden. I think they're great guys. Because Oprah, I mean, she would have to go through the same process of learning. I mean, you don't go to politics, you're the king. No. You have to start in grassroots, and then you move to a municipality, and then you're governor, or then you're congressman, and then you learn a senator, and then you get to the top.
Actually, it brings up a good point, because the demographics of this country, that there are tens of millions of people who consider themselves Hispanic. Many people are saying that we will have a Hispanic president soon. Who will that be? Who do you think?
You know, it's incredible. We all are leaders. That's our mantra in Vicente Fox. But when you look around, you say, where are they? Many times it's until you have the opportunity, then you jump and become a leader. But we should, I mean, the opportunity is now because we need leaders. California is low fruit hanging there for a Hispanic becoming governor. And one tried it and didn't make it, but that's the places we should be. You don't jump to up here. You have to go through state, you have to go to Congress, you have to, from there, get them. But if there was a plan, and always is a plan needed, done by group, you could get them there. You can get them there. And that's very important. That's exactly what I think is not going on right now within the Democratic Party. And I'm not a Democrat, by the way.
I know.
My philosophy and my thinking is much more a Republican.
The pun, yeah.
But a real Republican. Not a, como le dije, calabaza de qué. No, más bien dije que era como la mazorca, los pelos amarillos de la mazorca, the corn cobs.
Just about the Democrats right now on the Hill negotiating for very, very important things, the wall and DACA. How are they doing?
NAFTA.
And NAFTA.
Well, not them, yeah. I think that's what has to happen. Congress should get involved.
Are they doing enough?
The problem is when you hear a senator saying that they have to prepare something that Trump will accept. That's the wrong principle in democracy. In Mexico, we say the president proposes and Congress disposes. So it's the president that has to go to Congress and try to get what he wants, not the Congress take Trump what he wants. Eso es mucho lamer los zapatos. How do you say that in English?
Yeah. All right, last thing, and then I'll turn to, there's been a lot of discussion about the Trump effect on presidential politics in Mexico. And that the opposition, he's, you know, I mean, it's, the day he was elected, there were piñatas, people were smashing in Mexico, Trump, right? And that he's so disliked that it's actually had a bleed over effect. What is the effect that you say on Mexican presidential politics?
It is. Ira. I mean, we're offended. And that's the way we react. And I hope he doesn't come to Mexico soon because he will have problems.
But do you think inadvertently he will cause a different candidate to be elected there?
No, Mexico now is a sovereign nation. In the past, yes, there was a very strong influence of the United States in Mexican politics. Today is not accepted.
But I mean, will it swing it very left?
But we have to solve that problem.
Okay.
She's talking about the loquito de López Obrador. You know, he sent 5 people yesterday to where I went, and he's fighting hard, but he will not get there. I'm working. him not to get there. That Mexico cannot take that risk. We just have to understand that these false prophets promise, and then they don't deliver. That was Hugo Chavez. I met Hugo Chavez when he was elected democratically with 70% of the votes in Venezuela. And there was joy, and everybody was happy. But once he sat in that chair, in the chair of power, he started changing. He had his plans. And this is exactly like Lopitos.
Well, I'll just, before I turn to Javier, I just wanted to say congratulations on your book. And it is a very good read. And you won't be disappointed because he says things like Donald Trump has absolutely no government experience of any kind. He's had multiple marriages, filed 6 bankruptcies, and been involved in over 3,500 legal actions. And then it goes on to say, I mean, it's just the joy of some of the words you use here is a vulgar money grubber who made his wealth off the backs of people. Anyway, it's not dull, is the point, and congratulations on your book, and thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Talk to you.
Muchas gracias.
So we're going to take a couple of questions from the news. Is the Dallas Morning News here, Nicole? Is she in the room? Let me move on then. Sabrina Rodriguez with Politico. Carlos Vargas with the Associated Press. David Martosco with the Daily Mail. Or Brandy Buckman with Courthouse News. Brandy. Lindy Royce with CNN. Sorry, Brandy, I didn't see you.
Yes, I would just like to get your take on what you would tell supporters of Trump or his loyalists that live in the United States. What would you tell them about all of the policies that are generating all of this seeming chaos and all of this dissension? Do you have any advice to them?
You know, they're very, very strong supporters. He's down to 35 to 40% approval. It has not moved from there. If we take into consideration the election, of course, he had 45% of the votes or plus, but 50% of American people didn't go to vote. And that's a problem. Everybody doesn't go to vote. Because at the very end, he has the support of 30% of the population. That's all he has. And he should understand by that he cannot just do what he wants or what his base wants. There is another 70% out there that is not with him and that he has not convinced and that he is not trying to reach out for them. And that's the first job of a president, is to unite the nation, is to reach out to everybody, is to start ranking the problems according to public opinion and according to senators and congresses, and then you have a plan. But no, he's so authoritarian, and he was in business very authoritarian. And that's the unfortunate thing of moving from business world to politics. Because in business, the CEO commands, and he instructs, and everybody has to do what he says. That's not true in politics. And that's the first lesson that he has yet not learned. Although, as I said before, they are domesticating him. They're telling him, okay, no, I cannot go along with you on this crazy idea, or I cannot do that. And things will balance out with time, I'm sure. So I hope that's what will happen.
Is Efe in the room from Spain? Efe de España? And Al Jazeera. Okay. Any questions from our friends at LULAC, Roger or Brent?
Well, sure. So for those of us who value and cherish our relationship with Mexico, what can we do to try to help restore balance to the relationship? Because, as you said, one man shouldn't be able to tear us apart. So what can we do to try to get it back to where it should be?
With all respect, those who are in and are documented and are citizens, in a way, are taking the same position that those that came since Abraham Lincoln or Washington. Once you're here, you say, we don't want no more. And that's correct. There's a point where this nation has to administrate the flows of migration. It was very clear in the past that there is like a valve. All those Mexicans that came here is because somebody called them and somebody gave them a job. So it's an economic principle. The demand of jobs was here, and so they came, and they were received and protected and even accepted, although they were undocumented. Now that the economy is not running well, now that you don't want them, then you kick them out again. Let's remember what happened right after World War II. This nation sent its men to war, all of them. Unfortunately, there are women with courage here to take the responsibility. And women went to factories and went to do the jobs that had to be done, but it was not enough. So what was the answer? Bring in 2 million Mexicans. And they were invited. They didn't come here and they didn't knock the door. United States said, I need 2 million Mexicans. They brought them as braceros. And you brought them here and they work hard, 24 hours a day. And they helped this nation to come along. And they helped to keep the factories going and the services going. And once the war is over, okay, fucking Mexicans go back. No pay or Social Security, no nothing, just minimum wage that they gave them here. We are friends, we're part of this nation, we're neighbors, we're North America. And together we can do the things that the world needs. I think it's great that we have Canada, United States, and Mexico together. And we're part of it. We're not the little guy on the backyard. We already spoke about how much we buy here. We are up to that partnership that we created together. And we protect the back of this nation. Terrorists have not come through Mexico. And by the way, I don't think the cartel, the Mexican cartels, work depending on headquarters of cartel, which is run by Americans, which they bring in the drug, American cartels, they distribute, they sell, they collect, and then they buy the drug, or ask the Mexicans to transport it from Colombia and from there. The problem is here, not only consumption, but those who conduct. Like Ford Motor Company has the headquarters in Dearborn, Michigan. The cartels have headquarters here, and they operate in Colombia, and they operate in Mexico. And we pay 80,000 kids die every year in Mexico, in the streets of Mexico. Kids. And they did not have the opportunity to have a job. They did not have the opportunity to go to school because they didn't get their DACA scholarship. And so, who do they go to work for? The cartels. They pay them double the salary that General Motors is paying to those who work for them. So what's the option? We have to get out of this trap. Mexico has to get out of this trap. And besides all of that, we're accused that what's happening in Mexico? Are they drinking too much tequila? Why are they killing each other? By the way, crime rate in Mexico is 16.5 crimes for each 100 inhabitants. 20 cities here in the United States are way over above that, up to 50 crimes. And nobody says nothing about that. Bueno, ya, gracias.
One more question. One more question from Politico. I apologize. I went too fast. Go ahead.
Sabrina Rodriguez from Politico. Oh, okay. Yeah. So my question's relating to NAFTA, and you kind of talked about the two options, the two paths is to stay in or to withdraw. But what is, now that the negotiations are happening, the 6th round is happening in Montreal right now, what do you consider would be a good deal now, and how do you feel that the Mexican negotiating team has handled things so far?
I think there are improvements to be made to NAFTA. For instance, I go fully along with the demand that Mexico has to increase salaries. and that I've been promoting in Mexico. I think that as we have a minimum wage, and they have minimum wage for different professions or skills that go up and up and up, we should have one for anybody that exports, and that should be the higher minimum wage up here compared to this one. And that I think should be done. It's justice to do that, and I hope that's one of the outcomes of NAFTA. Number two, we need things like the financial world. It moves, but it's not regulated or it's not considered in NAFTA. So a lot of that can be worked out. Then we have technology schools, universities, also not enough linkage between ourselves. So, and at the very end, the number one and key issue is we're partners. We are partners, and we are North America, and we have to fight and compete with other places in the world. As I said, GM, Ford, and Chrysler cannot compete with Mercedes-Benz, with BMWs, with Toyotas, with Nissans. They beat the hell out of them if they don't work Canada, United States, and Mexico. And it's a good deal. 40% of the contents of Mexican automobiles made in Mexico comes from United States. So it's the whole production chain is totally integrated to the benefit of everybody.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I have to tell you that as I was sitting here, it struck me when President Fox spoke of his love of immigrants and how those are the people that he enjoys most seeing. And as the son of immigrant parents, as the son of braceros, the youngest of 10, raised as a migrant farm worker, I learned English as a second language. I lived in a one-room house with no running water, no electricity, and an outhouse for a bathroom. So you can imagine my pride standing on this stage with this amazing woman and this global visionary leader. Please help me thank Vicente Fox.